As an entrepreneur, no one tells you about employees, how to manage them, payroll tax, all of that stuff, unemployment tax. No one tells you about that.
How do we vertically integrate and control the quality without spending $1 million, $1.5 million on a store? And that's when we noticed laundromats generate most of their revenue on the weekends.
It wasn't ChatGPT back then.
No, there wasn't ChatGPT.
That'd be helpful.
And we probably should have surveyed more than just our college friends, because the top two options were Laundry Boys and 2U Laundry, both names I don't love.
My goodness. I like 2U Laundry. Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show, your go-to for real estate, business, health, and family insight. I'm Chris Salerno, CEO of QC Capital. Each episode, we explore the latest trends and expert advice from industry leaders. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or seeking balance, this show provides an inspiration you need. Join us and elevate your game on the Chris Salerno Show. Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show. I'm your host, Chris Salerno. I have Alex on the show today. Very excited to have this conversation with you. We actually won 30 under 30 way back when.
When we were under 30.
I know, right? I'm still under 30, so
I'm not.
Don't age me. But I can't remember what year it was when we won it. Time has flown by. But excited to talk about everything that you have going on, entrepreneurial at heart, and let's dive deeper into it. So before we get to what you're doing today, let's rewind it all the way back and talk about, where did that entrepreneur spirit start from, the very, very beginning? Were you like that as a kid? Give us a little background and history of that.
Yeah, so I think entrepreneurship for me was a little, I don't know if abstract's the right word, but growing up, my dad was a financial advisor. And I remember all my friends' parents worked 9 to 5 and worked year round. And my dad during the summer would be golfing 4 days a week. And I was like, how are you able to do this? And he's like, well, there's three ways you can be employed in life. You either work for someone, you work for yourself, or you have people working for you. Mm-hmm. And so at a young age, that just kind of stuck with me, the freedom and flexibility that he had.
Love that.
So knew I wanted to do something, either working for myself, being a, financial advisor, or something in sales.
Yeah.
Or becoming an entrepreneur at some point. And so for me, it really started in college. Went to Wake Forest University.
Yeah, beautiful campus.
The funny thing is I didn't even see it until orientation week. So I really wanted to get out of Minnesota. That's where I was from originally, just the cold, and wanted to try something new out. And applied to Duke, Chapel Hill. And I got into Wake, and I got waitlisted at Duke, and I was like, to hell with them. I'm going to Wake. But it was like a second early decision or something. Yeah. So basically, once you get in, you kind of have to go. Yeah. I'm sure there's ways out of it if you wanted to, but it was a top school for me. I wanted to go.
And Wake Forest is great. We just had another person on here who got his MBA at Wake Forest. It's a phenomenal school. I've been there before.
And it's funny what you think about as a 17, 16-year-old. I was like, I want to go to a good school, smaller, that has great athletics.
Oh, most definitely.
And that was important to me. Basketball was so important.
Yeah, and they're in the ACC, so it's a pretty competitive. It's not like the SEC, but it's competitive, in the sports.
And then they had the historical worst seasons while I was there.
Oh.
So I remember one year the school was giving students Chipotle gift cards to show up to the basketball games.
No way.
It was that
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty bad.
So I was like, what else will I do? I'll do a laundry startup instead.
Okay.
So that's how I got into entrepreneurship. Truly, I worked for what was a student-run laundry and dry cleaning delivery business. I wish I could sit here and say, it was my idea. I came up with it. I actually just worked for them freshman year.
So you majored in finance.
Yep.
Okay, and then from there in college, you're like, I'm going to go ahead and work for this laundry.
Yep, they were in my fraternity, and I was just looking for...
And what was their concept?
So they started in a classroom project where the professor gave each group of students $100 and said, hey, over the course of the semester, we're going to concept a business, we're going to take it to market, we're going to do customer feedback and product market fit, and
and see how it goes.
So the last 2 weeks of the semester, each group presented, here's what we did, here was our concept, here's how much revenue we generated. And the first group comes up and they're like, we did a food stand on the quad at night when people are coming home from parties and stuff. They did $200 in revenue. And this was over a 2-week period. The actual in-market period was. The second group came up and they said we sold T-shirts to sororities and fraternities. They did $500 or $600 in revenue. And everyone claps. The laundry group comes up and they're like, we did this for 2 weeks. The washers and dryers are free in the basement. It's included in room and board.
Oh, yeah.
And so we used our $100 on marketing. They did 6,000 in revenue in 2 weeks, and the professor, like everyone's jaw just dropped.
Really?
And the professor was like, "You should keep doing this after this class. Like you guys are clearly onto something."
The concept works, yeah.
And so I then worked for them after that. And the idea was they were just essentially a middleman. They would charge kids and their parents at Wake, hey, we'll do your son or daughter's laundry and dry cleaning and bring it back within 2 days, folded, hung up, ready to go, so that they can focus on studying or their social life or whatever.
Help save them time.
Exactly. And so I just worked as a bag runner for them. My job was to run into dorms, grab bags. I'd be running down the hallways, just carrying like 80 to 100 pounds in my back, run outside, load up a car, and then go to the next one. And then their senior year, they're obviously graduating. I was like, what are you guys going to do with it? I want to buy it. This could work at Duke, Chapel Hill, Vanderbilt. And it's like, we're going to sell it. And they told me they're going to sell it for $30,000. And my jaw just hit the floor. That was the most money I've ever seen. I'd ever heard of at the time. Like $30,000, that's so much. And I had $2 or $3,000 saved up. So I found 2 partners. We got to $11,000. Still not enough. One of their parents was willing to personally guarantee the rest. We bought the business, immediately got a partnership with the university, which is something that they didn't have. So we got
that's huge.
Exclusivity, got to use the name officially and the name of the brand, Wake Wash. And then they gave us, the biggest thing was a booth at orientation and emails to the parents of incoming freshmen.
There you go.
We went from doing like $30,000 a school year in revenue to like 200 and some thousand in revenue.
Wow.
High margin because it's subscription. They pay up front. We paid off that loan to one of my partner's parents within the first 3 weeks of, basically launching the business. So we were like, hey, this is working. And from there, I took everything I ever learned in a class and just applied it to this small college laundry business. And it made every class way more enjoyable. And I learned way more doing it actually in practice versus theory.
I love that. And so let's talk about expansion. Coming from Wake, did you guys go ahead and hit other colleges and pitch this to other colleges to expand that?
So the first year was get our bearings, figure out how do we run this? It's gotten bigger. We've got employees. Do we get a van and start doing that? Because before it was people using their own cars.
As an entrepreneur, no one tells you about employees, how to manage them, payroll tax, all of that stuff, unemployment tax. No one tells you about that.
Yeah, all of that was the crash course of figuring out how to navigate and do that.
All hands on. Yeah, yep. You normally understand it when you get a notice saying you're past due, and you're like, "What is this?"
I had one mentor later tell me that and this isn't advice. Don't take this. He said he would intentionally not pay taxes the first year or two because his thought process was every dollar that I don't pay in taxes goes back into the business. And if I fail, doesn't matter. I go bankrupt and I used every dollar I could and don't owe those taxes anymore. And if the business succeeds, I'll just pay the penalties and back taxes.
Yeah, and then be done
interest.
with it. Interesting.
I was like,
that's an interesting way to look at it.
I can't do that.
I mean, at least call them up and see if you can do a payment plan and make sure as well. But yeah, that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now, you guys have this concept going at Wake. You're making pretty good money, up front, Wake's behind you. What's your thought process after that? Where's that next step?
So me and one of the guys, he's like one of my best friends. He was in my wedding. He's a British guy, and he was like, "Let's go. We're gonna launch all these schools." And so we started talking to other universities, High Point, Duke. There was one right in Winston where Wake Forest is called Winston-Salem State, and we actually did a pilot there, but it's a different a demographic or different cost of tuition, et cetera. And so there wasn't as much, affluent families wanting to pay for their kids.
So you realized that you had to go to really your tier 1 colleges where your tuition is higher.
Yep. So realized that. Then we tried High Point, which is closer, to that level. And we started running into this issue of, because we were students at Wake, they, gave us a lot of preferential treatment and were allowing us to experiment. It was a good story for them, right? Look what our students are doing. And but now it becomes High Point, and we're an outside third-party business to them, regardless of us being 18, 19, 20 years old. They're like, we don't care. You have to do an RFP, and provide information.
Go through all these steps. Really?
And we're like, okay. And they're like, and we don't want you to have access to the dorms, because we had that at Wake, which was important. Kids don't want to lug a 20-pound book bag and then a 40-pound.
No.
So like, well, we really need access to the dorms. What if we do a joint venture with a college kid? We'll basically kind of franchise it out. We'll give them the playbook, and So we actually found a ton of entrepreneurial students at each school, and we're like, hey,
wanted to do it.
We're one of you. We made this money. We'll help you do it. Our only ask is that we own half of it, and then when you graduate, we'll help you facilitate the transaction. So you get to learn about buying a business, selling a business, running a business.
Amazing.
And like, this sounds awesome. It's like these students loved it. We're lined up to do it. We go back to the university. Hey, here's Jimmy from High Point or whatever, and here's us and our track record at Wake, and it works. We're gonna put them together and let us do this.
100%.
More red tape. Well, hey, what if you're gonna take advantage of Jimmy? We're like, no, here's the contract. You can see everything how it's gonna work, and he wants to do it. He would Jimmy would literally be the liaison to the school, saying, I want to do this, and the school would shut us down. And so we got kind of
you gotta love schools shutting entrepreneurs down. Like, come on.
A lot of bureaucracy, and I get it. Like, in hindsight, I look at it and say, I'm in that job. What upside do I have allowing this? Not a lot. Getting a cool story to say, hey, our students are running this business. The downside is, what if someone does steal something? It's just another headache for them. And if they say no one's gonna get mad at them, or they're gonna get in trouble. Besides that one kid. So it's like the upside is limited and the risk is high. And
understood.
They're in a university bureaucratic setting. I was like, I get it. I don't think I would do the same thing, but I put myself in that person's
most definitely
position. It's like, no chance unless we.
So realizing all those red tapes with the colleges, you guys then did what?
So I think we're our seniors at that time. We talked about I think entrepreneurs are successful when they persevere, and that's one of the best traits I think an entrepreneur can have is perseverance. And so we're like, well, maybe we should keep trying. We did try a couple more times. And then just got to a point where it's like we're starting to get our our big boy and big girl jobs and graduating. So we ended up selling it for almost 10 times what we bought it for. And again, we felt like this is the most money in the world. We can retire. Kidding, but it was an awesome experience to see it from working for them to buying it to running it to selling it. So closed that door. Went and worked for Ernst & Young for 2 years doing consulting. Mm-hmm. Thought that would be entrepreneurial, right? You're jumping from project to project and solving different things. And I loved the people I worked with, but I just didn't love the work. It was, even though it was varied projects, it was at much larger companies and things moved slower and kind of more bureaucratic, similar to that experience that we had. And I just loved the feeling of what we were doing at Wake Wash, where it was like, hey, we have this idea. We could test that idea within a couple of days and see the results of that idea within a couple of days, and just how fast you could go.
Most definitely.
I was addicted to it. It was just problem solving, collaborating with other people, trying to bust down doors and figure out ways in or around problems. And so I knew that I couldn't stay at Ernst & Young forever. And I'd actually tried doing the laundry thing again at another college campus while I was at EY, just to see
how it was and things like that.
And still bureaucratic. So I was like, well, maybe we skip schools, and is there another customer base we could go after? Mm-hmm. And this was at a time that we saw Uber for everything, Uber for grocery delivery, food, dog walking, food. I was like, why not for laundry, but not purely Uber for X. Maybe this is more like FedEx for laundry, or UPS where it's branded vehicles, because it's a lot more complicated, right? Food is point A to point B. A ride is point A to point B. Correct. Laundry is go to Chris's house, pick up laundry. You might have dry cleaning too. Then go to the vendors. Might be two vendors, because if you have dry cleaning and laundry, it's two completely different businesses. Yep. Process happens, and then we have to get those things back together and brought to you. So there's way more steps, way more logistics, and people don't necessarily need laundry on demand. Even if we come to this studio right now in 15 minutes, it is still going to take at least half of a day, maybe a day, to get it all done and back to you.
Most
so
definitely.
The urgency is not actually there versus ride sharing, food delivery. And you get to the airport, I need the ride now. I'm hungry. I want
it is
now.
It is a necessity, though. We need clean clothes.
Absolutely.
And I would say that would be a necessity, is that all working individuals and really everyone wants clean clothes that smell good.
Yep.
And if they can have it already folded for them, already done, it saves half the battle.
Yep. Absolutely. So I felt good that the market was there. It was the operational, how do we deliver it? How do we pick it up? What's the underlying business model? And saw another company on the West Coast raise $10 million. They were called Washio, to do purely on demand. Someone would come to your house in 15 minutes. And I just, I kept thinking that people don't need the 15-minute thing. They want the clean clothes. They want to, come back, reliably at a high quality. And I think when you try to put all the emphasis on speed, you have to give up something somewhere else, and it's probably quality or cost. And I'd rather put the emphasis on quality. It might take a day to get back to you, maybe two, but when it comes back, it's going to be how you...
I think the big thing is like, for example, my hair product. I have a good gauge on when I like how much I use of that certain type of hair product. So I know if I put it on reoccurring with Amazon, it's going to come every, 5 to 6 weeks. And so if you can really, the first couple times, will probably be iffy, using a service like that. But after you can gauge, okay, I have X amount of clothes will be dirty, I'll use this once a week or once every other week, and I know it's going to come back, on this certain date. Once you get that rhythm in, I think it's easy.
Totally. And laundry's, to your point, it's no different. Our household's doing X. I know how many loads a day, a week I'm doing. And
correct.
It was easy for people to back into. And so we launched 2U Laundry in January of 2016. And the idea, again, was instead of on demand, we'll be route based.
Yeah. And I see the trucks around.
There's
the
like
vans
30
around.
of them now in Charlotte.
I know.
It's awesome.
I see them around.
So route based versus on demand. The second piece was, quality has to be at the forefront of every decision we make versus speed or cost. So let's make sure that, because people spend a lot of money on clothes, right? Some shirts are 100 plus, pants,
and you don't want to fuck those up.
No. We're making $40, a bag, and one item in there gets damaged. We're going to replace it, and there goes profit for not just that order, but probably the next 2 or 3 orders.
Yeah, you got to be very careful. Before we dive into that, let's talk. When you guys founded 2U Laundry, how'd you raise the capital, if any, from investors? What was that pitch like? I mean, you guys already had somewhat of a track record from the college. However, if I was an investor, I'd say, well, a college is already providing your customer base. So what is your plans to actually get customers? What's that marketing look like? What's that budget look like? So talk to us before, you guys launched 2U Laundry on what did that look like with the raising capital, pitching investors, and then how were you mentally going into those?
Yeah, so I think we were 23 at the time, and so there was a lot of things we didn't know, and a lot of it was trial and error. We had a kind of a typical, or not typical, but stereotypical startup story where we had 5 guys living in a 3-bedroom apartment. It was my mattress, my co-founder Dan's mattress on the floor next to me, and then a buddy of ours who moved down just to kind of be our first driver. He was in a small town we grew up in, was kind of just excited to come and be a part of it. His mattress on the floor next to ours. And you had to do a lot of that trial and error. And as far as pitching, Dan and I each put, I think, the little bit of money that we had left, because I took the money from Wake Wash and bought a condo, and so I didn't have a ton of just cash sitting around. So we each, I think, put like $5,000 into it, and that was a lot of money for us at the time. And that was to get some of the initial laundry bags, some initial marketing material, and we thought it would be busy millennials that were our customers. So we were thinking, how do we get in front of a bunch of millennials?
So your client base, you're going into it as busy millennials, that just don't want to wash their laundry. They're single maybe, or, they're a girlfriend, boyfriend, or married possibly, but they're millennials that are just so busy with life. They want to enjoy life, and they don't want the burden of washing, cleaning their clothes.
Yeah, we thought like investment bankers or
most
consultants. Definitely. And so we targeted.
I hate doing laundry.
Yeah, no one likes it. A lot of people don't like it.
And I do it every single day because I work out every single day, and you can't leave the athletic clothes that you're sweating in overnight, or they'll smell moldy and things like that. They'll ruin the clothes too. So every single day I'm doing a load of laundry. Yeah.
And throw kids on it and everything.
Oh yeah, I got a little son too. I gotta take care of his stuff and all that. Yeah.
And baby clothes or kids' clothes are the worst.
Oh my God.
And take up a lot of space.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But so we thought it'd be busy professionals. So where do we go? Where do we find a lot of those individuals for cheap or free? Because again, we don't have a lot of money to do marketing.
Correct.
And so we would do free, like pizza and beer events at different apartments uptown, at Catalyst, at Element, et cetera. And sometimes we would just do it without even asking the apartment for permission.
Are you serious? That is a true entrepreneur of showing up with pizza and beer and doing it and then asking for,
the person
forgiveness.
at the desk thought, oh, they must have gotten approval from the
Are you serious? I love that. That is a true entrepreneur right there.
And we would give bags away for free. Like, hey, take this bag. And,
you have to do that sometimes too, though. You have to go out and take that risk and, without getting that permission, and ask for forgiveness if you get caught. But you have to do that. You have to take that risk in life.
Totally. I mean, we did a booth outside of a Bank of America stadium for a Panthers game, and that lasted for like 15 minutes before cops walked over. Like,
are you
guys
serious?
Can't be doing, like, it was like we were the only booth there, and tons of people are talking to us.
Oh my goodness.
So that one got shut down quick. But we were doing things like that were cheap or free or scrappy, posting on Nextdoor and Facebook groups, at first. And then as far as like raising money in our first pitches, we got to a point where we started organically. We probably got to, I don't know, $20K a month in revenue. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that and thought, this isn't good. At Wake, we were doing so much more. And I was discounting how hard it is for most companies to get off the ground when they have no customer base, a very MVP-ish product. And I was telling Dan, I was like, I'm not, this isn't good. $20K a month, that's nothing. And then I talked to other founders, and they're like, you have $20K a month in revenue in your first 2 months or whatever. And I was like, yeah, but we need to be at 100 already.
I love that mindset.
And so we realized we need capital to start spending real money on marketing and building out the team a little bit. Because at that point, I'm picking up and dropping off clothes. I've got Bluetooth headphones in, taking customer support calls while
you're driving.
And like one of us is working on the website, another one's, so we were just all over.
You were
the place.
grinding it.
And it was starting to break. We were like, we need money to go
and hire people too.
Put money into marketing. And we knew nothing about pitching or, I had a little bit of experience at Ernst & Young putting decks together for client, proposals and things like that. And so I built our first pitch deck, and it was, look, I still have it. I see that one versus the one that we've raised $20 million on. It's way different. And so we did like pitch breakfast in town. If anyone's
I've been there a couple times.
Like that was a good way for us to practice.
Yeah, constructive criticism, tweaking everything, 100%.
Yeah, so we did as many of those kind of like free pitch events that we possibly could.
Where you can get feedback.
Refine it, get feedback. And the funny thing was we went to go pitch at one of these events, and I was used to this mantra that EY had of, we're at the very least going to at least match what our customer or what our client is dressed like. So if this is like Google, they're probably a little bit more laid back, but at a minimum, we're going to be business casual. And so I was just used to like, you have to show up in like a suit or a jacket.
I know.
And so we're at this pitch event, and like some guys, one guy was wearing shorts and sandals, and I was like, shit, we're really overdressed. And after we pitched, a guy came up and was like, I'm interested in putting 50 grand into this. A lot of it has to do with you guys take yourself seriously, and if you guys look like this, I can't imagine what you're taking, how your business is going to be run and how well you're going to treat the clothing and all that. And I was like, damn, okay, this worked. Putting the suit on paid off.
There you go.
But at the time, we felt ridiculous because it's a startup event, and the startup stereotypes were there, and I've now become more of that startup stereotype. But at the time, it was very much like
suit. Yeah. I used to wear suits 7 days a week. I love them. Don't get me wrong, but I thought that same thing too, as well as when I got into the real estate space, and a lot of these big players in the real estate space, they have flip-flop shorts and t-shirt on. And I'm going to meetings with a guy who's worth 150 million, and he's just in a t-shirt, living his life, which he can, he's worked his ass off to get there. But I've noticed that too, big time. And now I just wear all black with the company logo, and no one says anything on that. But yeah, I think that's a big thing. But congratulations, that's good. 50K, that's big.
So that was our first, okay, someone's interested in this. And then we started talking to VCs, and again, knew nothing about raising capital. If anyone does decide to go the startup route, tech entrepreneur, and they're raising capital, there's a book called Venture Deals that lays it all out from the attorney's perspective, from the VC's perspective,
Venture
from
Deals.
The founder perspective. And I wish I'd read it sooner, but the first few conversations with these VCs, we had to show the pitch deck, give the unit economic model, all the stuff that we'd put in a data room or a deal room. And again, we were fortunate, I think, because of our past experience, but also the revenue that we had. A lot of startups are pre-revenue and don't have a ton of traction. And thankfully with this, a lot of people need laundry done, to your point earlier. And we'd scrapped our way to, I think at this point, maybe 60, 70K in monthly revenue. And so investors were, I think, impressed by that. And we ended up with 3 term sheets from VCs from Raleigh. And it's changed a lot since 8 years ago until now. But 2 of the VCs gave us pretty, I don't want to say anti-founder, but not founder-friendly terms. And again, we didn't know.
You didn't know because you're new to it. Plus, you didn't know what to compare it to.
And we got really lucky in that the third group that decided to we were actually about to get all 3 of them. And one of the groups said, I would feel guilty if I came in on these terms, even though they're in my best interest as an investor. They're not the right things for you guys to be doing. It was multiple board seats, 3x liquidation preferences, all these kind of crazy terms. Stuff. And so they basically said, look, we aren't going to participate. We like you guys and like what's going on. It's not because of that. It's because these terms, I think, are going to hurt you guys in the future. And we're like, well, why don't you guys do the whole thing then? And let's do more fair terms. And they agreed to do that. And
nice.
So we have dodged a huge bullet, but it was a, first kind of wake up call of making sure what you're surrounding yourself with good people.
Entrepreneurship and business is the Hunger Games.
Yeah, totally.
And if you can't last in the Hunger Games, you're going to be dead. Like, you might as well go work for someone.
Completely.
Because it is the Hunger Games. You have to be able to understand that. And I joke with my attorneys, because we have personal attorneys, corporate attorneys, and I joke with them and I say, I should just get a law degree, because I've read so many contracts. I've even spell checked some of these attorneys as well, restructured things in these contracts, and it's like I didn't realize how much I was going to basically be an attorney. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize that as an entrepreneur, but it's super important to have that legal counsel on your back, because you're going to go through it a lot.
Yeah, they're expensive, but it's worth it.
I wish someone told me too at the very beginning is, hey, make sure you save and budget some reserves set aside for legal.
Yep.
Because they are expensive. They will milk you dry. And no matter what, you're going to have to engage with some sort of type of legal. If it's litigation, if it's, contract review, whatever, you're going to have to engage with them as a business owner.
Yep. And also, like any other profession, some are really specialized in one thing and might not be the right attorney for this. So knowing the right tool for the right problem is important.
Our corporate attorney is not an SEC attorney. We have SEC attorneys, that deal with our SEC documents and things like that for raising capital. But we have a corporate attorney. Thankfully, he's also specialized in real estate contract law, so it's very easy when we do our deals and things like that. But normally, a lot of attorneys specialize in one thing. And I recommend, if you're out there in whatever business career, understand the legality of that industry. Get those attorneys already on call. Make sure you know who they are, have a consultation with them, understand from their perspective. So if something goes wrong, you can always email them.
Yeah, I mean, we have a bench of probably 6 or 7 completely different attorneys now that we've trial and error, have had to find the right partners for the right problems.
Most definitely, yeah.
And I think it's easy to get rose-colored glasses for anything, not just attorneys, marketing resources, product.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this person was at Red Ventures or Google, but they might have done a very specific thing there, and you need this very specific thing. And now you've got the wrong tool. You've got a screwdriver when you needed a hammer.
Most definitely. No, love that. So you guys are building 2U Laundry. Let's talk about the full concept of 2U Laundry and what did you guys provide, as a service all around?
Yeah, so it was very similar to what we did in college. It was laundry and dry cleaning, picked up from right outside your front door, delivered the very next day, perfectly cleaned, folded, hung up on hangers if it's dry cleaning, ready to put away in your closet, put away in your drawer. And that was the thought. And again, it was busy professionals. We originally thought. Very quickly were proven wrong. Not that it's not that group. It's 10. That group is 10 to 20% of our customer base.
Wow.
The overwhelming majority is busy families, dual income families with kids.
Yeah.
They're doing laundry multiple times a day.
Yeah. If you have multiple kids, you're definitely doing it. And if you have a boy mixed up in there, they're outside getting dirty. Boom. I mean, my son goes through 3 or 4 outfits a day.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't have kids yet, and so I got into the understanding of what families are going through from a laundry perspective early on, and to this day have stories I'll never forget. I had some of our early customers, predominantly mom, making the purchasing decision for the home, calling us and saying, you could tell audibly crying that you don't understand. I'm doing this every day. My husband doesn't get it. You guys understand. This is a never-ending battle. And I'm like, I'd put it on mute and I'd look at Dan. This is laundry. What's going on?
Oh,
and
I believe it.
So at first we thought that was just like a one-off instance, and then it happened like 5 or 6 other times.
So
people audibly crying about laundry. I was like, crap. This is like, Dan, this is what our lives are going to look like someday. There's going to be kids and there's going to be laundry that just like piles up constantly, and we're going to have to figure this out.
Most definitely. And so you really found that customer base, and how did you guys start to market to that customer base? After you went out there, you started marketing, you realized who really is that customer base, and essentially it's families. Sounds like possibly high percentage of stay-at-home moms. How was that marketing, and how did you guys market to that customer base?
Yeah, so we realized the buyer was in the data said this, right? And some of the stereotype is true. It's kind of like the husband was responsible for maybe outside of the home, the lawn maintenance, et cetera, and the wife or the mom was responsible for the inside of the home. And a lot of our customers, both parents worked. both pretty high powered, corporate jobs, consulting, legal, lawyer jobs, et cetera. And so high household income and, divvied up responsibilities that way. Hey, I've got the outside, you've got the inside of the home. And so we would be selling to mom predominantly, busy mom. And so we would start marketing on Facebook mom groups.
Nextdoor. Moms love Nextdoor.
And I have heard Nextdoor has changed a little bit, but we were like early Nextdoor when people were really like all over it. And I haven't personally been on
Moms love Facebook groups too.
Yeah, just
when the kids are sleeping, they got some, all that drama that goes on in there.
That and then referring, services and products and selling things to each other.
Oh yeah.
So that just took off. So we started getting some like mom influencers and ambassadors to use the service.
Smart.
And write about it or
post about it. That is, if you as a business owner and if you're starting a business, if you can find those influencers, that is huge. And that is marketing these days. Marketing is totally changed to 100% influencers. If you have followers, you're able to get sponsored by all different type of companies to post on social media, have a QR code. If you negotiate a certain percentage of it, you can do that as well, or just a one-time upfront fee to post. But that is super big in marketing these days. Super big.
We were doing this 6 years ago or so, and even then it was you still just starting to get going, but massive impact on small audiences even because it's so targeted.
Oh yeah.
And so we did that. We had the pink vans driving around. Our colors are pink
I
and
remember
blue.
them. Yeah.
And so people seeing those drive up to the neighbor's house and wonder what are they
the heck
doing?
Is that?
And they want to keep not necessarily keep up with the Joneses, but it at least gave them an idea of, hey,
they're nosy. They want to know what they do.
They're doing that. Why can't I do that? And so
and that is the biggest way to start anything, even when you're raising capital. You guys just did a raise, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But even with raising capital, is you build that strong referral base. And it is shocking how far it spreads and how strong that customer base is. And as your experience in having successful exits, when you raise capital from investors, they are a lot easier to just give you the money. Obviously they're going to ask, they're going to want to know the insights of what you're doing and things like that, but it's going to be a lot easier raising capital from those individuals because they're repeat customers. Plus when they refer so-and-so, I see it all the time. Oh, if so-and-so trusts you, yep, we're good. Yep, we've already checked that box. Cool. When do we wire? Very simple.
The biggest hack that we've learned that I pass on to other folks that I either mentor or give advice to is this idea of a forwardable email. And it's the simplest, like once you say it out loud, you're like, it's just an email. Why are you raving about this? But Techstars, an accelerator program that we went through taught us this. And it was, whenever you want to get an in, whether it's for an investor, a customer, finding an employee, whatever it may be, leverage the network you have, right? So I go to Chris, and I know that the CEO at Tide. That Tide CEO would probably never talk to me if I cold email or call or whatever.
Never.
He knows Chris.
Oh, yeah.
So I write you an email saying, hey, Chris, great talking to you today on the show. You mentioned, Todd from Procter & Gamble. I tailor this email directed at Todd, but I send it to you and say, hey, you recommended I should talk to Todd. I completely agree. Here's why. And then basically some bullets about what we're doing. Kind of the hook.
That.
You then forward it to Todd. So it was not really any real work for you, right?
No,
you had to just
hit forward,
click a couple buttons.
Yeah. Hey, thought you may be interested.
But I get to piggyback off of your relationship, your credibility, get to own the whole messaging myself because I'm drafting up the email.
100%.
And then Todd has this safe way to either say, hey, Chris, I don't really want to take the intro and here's why. And then you can filter the feedback to me if you want. Or say, hey, I really like this. And if you like this guy,
correct,
I'll take it.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Just a quick reminder to make sure you never miss an episode. Stay connected with us by following us on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok at Chris_Salerno_. And don't forget to subscribe to YouTube to catch the video versions of our episode. You'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes footage, and much more. Head over to YouTube, Chris_Salerno now, and hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned because we've got more great content coming right after this. Because we surround ourselves with people that are interested in the same things, with a certain type of mindset that we all have as well. And you want to do that. You want to grow as a team and surround yourself with those individuals that are like-minded. And so if I like Formula One, you may like Formula One too. In most cases you do. So I think that's super important. Even taking it to the next level on LinkedIn. If you're cold outreaching and someone on LinkedIn, you can say, hey, I see we have a mutual friend, Alex, in common. Well, would love to hear your experience with him. I've had great experience with him and what he's doing. And then open up a conversation that way too.
Yeah, and it allowed me the person writing the forwardable has the onus of their work, which it should be. They're the one trying to get in and break into whatever that connection is. But it not de-risks, but de-risks and takes some of the work off of the people who are providing the most value, you, the connector. And my rate of people opening emails that likely shouldn't have been, Mark Cuban, Barbara Corkman, people that I figured would never open a cold email because we went through someone else that kind of knew who they were. They weren't even... Yeah. Our connection rate went up to like 95+% on
I love that.
Getting to anyone. It's such a hack.
No, that is super, super smart. Before we talk about, the strategy and you guys having locations and how does 2U Laundry all work, I want to discuss how many times and how comfortable have you been on hearing the word no?
A lot. I mean, when we went through Techstars, we'd raised $400K the first round and then $2.5 million the second. And that was right around the time we were going through Techstars. And I remember they had a metric, the average founder gets, I can't remember if it was 150 or 125 no's before they finish out the round, basically, regardless of whether it's $400,000 or $40 million.
Most definitely.
And I think I started tracking, how many no's I got. No's? And it was right around the number they said. I think it was 150 or 125, but really? 125 no's before maybe not the first yes, but until you get enough yeses to close the round out.
Yeah. And you have to get comfortable with it. And I did something, a podcast earlier about this is you have to get comfortable saying no. Mm-hmm. And you have to be comfortable hearing no. Because you're going to have it. I mean, what Howard Schwartz with Starbucks, don't hold me to this, but I think he was told no like 232 times, and the 233rd time a bank said, okay, we'll give you a loan to start Starbucks. And now look at Starbucks. Mm-hmm. They're in every Target, every Harris Teeter. If you know what Harris Teeter is around Charlotte, they're everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. So you have to really get comfortable with hearing the word no.
Yep, not taking it personally and persevering again.
100%. So let's talk about the whole strategy. You come to the door, you pick up my clothes. Where are you taking this? Do you guys have vendors that you are basically brokering it out? I know off South Tryon here in Charlotte, I saw one of your locations. Do you guys have multiple locations where you're doing that in-house? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of startups out of the gate, you might not have a ton of resources, not a lot of validation. And so even if you did have the resources, you might not want to overcommit until you get feedback from the market and feedback from the customer. And so we early on thought this is going to be a tech logistics play where we acquire customers and we facilitate all of the logistics, but then we're connecting customers with existing laundromats, existing dry cleaners. So we did that for a little bit.
And you're going to have to do that to start off. Unless you have that backing to go buy a physical location to even use the capital to go into a physical location and use their washes and things like that. But then it comes down to the quality. Is that staying consistent? Yep. So before you have to really dive into that, you have to do some brokering.
Completely. And so we went to existing laundromats, went to existing dry cleaners.
And you guys were doing it.
And we were... At first, we did it in our apartment. That's like the real early.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
That's the early. That only lasted like a month or two. Though. And we were like, okay, this isn't going to work. So then we went to existing laundromats and said, a lot of them do drop off, wash, dry, fold already. And so we said, you already have a person doing this. What if we brought you 3,000 pounds a week? And all of them like laughed. Like, you're not going to. Where are you going to get 3,000 pounds from? They're like, we don't even do that. And we've been in business for 8 years or 10 years or whatever it was. We're like, trust us. We're going to get 3,000. Let's do a tiered system where if we bring 500 pounds a week, it's $1 a pound, 90, 80, 85, whatever. And so that was the agreement we had where we would bring laundry. We shattered the 3,000 pounds a week in like
What'd they say?
2.5 weeks. They're like, I can't believe you did this. This is amazing.
Love that.
So they loved it at first. We kept growing, got to a size where it became too much. They're now having to have 10 employees there versus a laundromat being 2 employees at most. It's usually a self-service passive business for laundromat owners. Yep. And so we started running into quality issues where they either didn't staff up appropriately, they don't have the experience to run that intensive an operation because they never have before. They're landowners basically, or landlords, and run a passive laundromat business.
And they're happy and consistent with where they are. They're not marketing whatsoever. Most of them don't even have a damn website, and they're just sitting there and counting the quarters or the cash from the cash machine, and they're happy with it.
Yep.
You know, I made $5,000 this month, or I'm happy with it. Yep. That's it.
And so that was our first big hurdle was, hey, we have the customers, the quality is what's potentially going to hurt us here. How do we vertically integrate and control the quality without spending $1 million, $1.5 million on a store? And that's when we noticed laundromats generate most of their revenue on the weekends. Monday through Friday, though, people are working and aren't necessarily in the laundromat. And all that equipment is just sitting there. And that's when 2U is busiest. So we said, hey, why don't we rent out your facility basically during off hours? We'll staff it up ourselves. So we own the process, the quality without having to invest.
We own the people and everything. All you do is get a check.
Without the CapEx and the overhead of equipment. So we did that for like a year and a half. It worked really well. We developed our own tech around it, developed the process, how we hire, manage people. It forced us to learn all of that we didn't know as well at the time.
So you're seeing laundromats Friday, Saturday, Sunday be the busiest.
Yes.
Yeah. People are off work, they can go and get it done.
Yep, just like if you have a washer and dryer at home, you're most likely doing it on the bulk of it.
Yeah.
And so that worked really well. Then we hit our next hurdle of, hey, we've got 4 or 5 of these laundromats in Charlotte that we're bringing our own teams into. Some are 1,000 square feet, some are 2,500 square feet, some have new equipment, old equipment. But the biggest thing was the owner's kind of business or partner mentality. One of the guys that we worked with was like, here's the keys, build shelving, do whatever you want here because you're bringing me, $5 to $10 grand a month of revenue.
I'm happy.
I didn't have. So this store is your store just like it's mine. We're like,
okay,
amazing.
Cool.
The other 4 were like, hey, we got to rope off an area. I got to start charging you another $50 a month for toilet paper. Your team's using my bathroom too much. Like just kind of goofy nickel and dime. Hey, I had 2 customers call in complaining about you guys using the equipment. All right, so 2 of your customers are upset versus us bringing you the equivalent of like 300 new customers in the form of.
Oh, I bet they're upset when you guys started doing your own thing.
They're completely different customers. A walk-in laundromat customers, lower income typically, self-service business. So we're saying, hey, we're bringing you 200 to 300 new customers that you would never ever have. It would have never been here, and you're upset that 2 of your walk-in customers are complaining. So
and that's a good ratio too. Normally, 300-400 customers, you're gonna have a couple that complain, and
they would obsess over the 2, like, well, I lost 2 customers, and forget about how they gained 300 over here, and that was causing a lot of friction. And so we just realized if this is what it's like with 5 laundromat partners, what's it going to be like with 500 or 5,000 when we really blowing this up nationally. And more evidence to vertically integrate. Still not at a spot where we could go to a bank and get $1.5 million loan for equipment. And so we got our stroke of kind of luck and right timing. Electrolux, they're a $18 billion appliance company out of Sweden. They own brands like Frigidaire, which many of us are familiar with. And they were like, we love what you're doing. Why haven't you built your own facility yet? And we're like, we're glad you asked. We're not bankable. We're like 25 years old. We don't have any personal assets to really guarantee anything. And we don't want to use venture capital or equity capital to finance equipment. We will if we have to, but they're like, well, why don't we be the bank? We'll help finance the first location. The downside for us is relatively low. You're already doing a couple million in pickup and delivery, so you're going to make payments day one. On top of that, you're going to have a walk-in revenue stream now that you didn't have before. So for us, this isn't all that risky. The upside is if this works, you're going to want to open a second, a third, and maybe someday hundreds of these. And we want to sell you hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment.
Oh, most definitely.
So great, let's do it. So we build this 6,300 square foot, it's a former McDonald's off of South Boulevard, Arrowwood Road. Convert that into a laundromat, get walk-in customers now, 7 days a week, but Monday through Friday when it's less busy, we actually have kind of sliding doors that close, and it makes the laundromat still available to the public, but a smaller footprint. And then we have this kind of back of the house processing plant that can also be used on the weekend for walk-in customers. So that ended up being the model. It worked incredibly well. Fast forward to kind of COVID times and the model changing a little bit again was we realized the key to this whole thing working at scale from a quality and a cost perspective is the vertical integration. but each of these locations cost $1 million to $2 million depending on the city, the size.
Yeah.
And so we need a boatload of capital. It was one thing that we'd have to come up with to figure that out. On top of that, each location has including drivers, 30 to 40 employees, and that was another pain point of as far as scaling the business more rapidly. And so we started turning to the idea of, could we franchise the underlying brick and mortar business, the four walls, bring partners in that'll care about the business just as much as we do because it's their own capital into it. They bring the capital to open these locations, and we can also open more of them at once because there's now a groups of people doing it at the same time. And it solves our labor problem. We'll still manage the drivers and the vehicles and the customer acquisition and customer support for 2U. But now when our vans roll up, it is a trusted partner that has to follow our processes, that has to use our technology, that has to produce the quality and cares about it again. The way that we do. And so it solves some of our labor, kind of scalability issues as well.
I love that. How'd you guys even come up with a name 2U?
So we were 23 again, I think, and we just did like a survey monkey of 10 random names we came up with.
It wasn't ChatGPT back then.
No, there wasn't ChatGPT.
That'd be helpful.
And we probably should have surveyed more than just our college friends because the top two options were Laundry Boys and 2U Laundry, both names I don't love.
My goodness. I like 2U Laundry.
It started to catch on now, but so many people say U2 Laundry and spell it YOTOU or TOYOU.
I could see that.
And so like from a search, so we ended up buying all those domains and routing them back. But the amount of times people say U2 is, and again, people eventually find it, but it just...
most definitely.
And it's not short. It explains what we do, but...
No, I love that. So talk to us about your transition, on selling your portion and moving into this new venture that you have.
Yeah, so when we launched LaundroLab, that's the name of the franchise component. We had to learn a whole new business now. Franchising is a whole different world. Whole different
beast. Documents you have to have, all of that. It's wild. People don't realize
bundled up. I don't know how a group, like let's say you and I own a series of coffee shops together. I don't know how we go from that to franchising without putting 100, 200K into bundling it all up.
Legal, all that.
And do we have that money? Do we have to raise it? Because we've probably reinvested most of our money back into the coffee shops and we're running it. So that gap to me is
people don't realize franchising is expensive to franchise. And then the legality of audits, the legality of being like obviously you should always be transparent amongst all your investors, but it's all in paper. And it comes down to everything, what you pay for a coffee cup, the lids, it comes down to the machines. I've looked at franchise paperwork and it comes down to every single equipment you have, you got to put in there. Like it's wild.
So it's a whole new frontier that we had to figure out. Not only the legal aspects, packaging up, training, marketing, collateral, which logos can people use, which taglines and verbiage are we going to allow people to use, and so it was a whole new thing for us to figure out. We get into franchising, realize how franchises are packaged up and sold, and the strategy. Do you do master franchise agreements where someone buys out a whole state and they're basically re-franchising it and selling those licenses? So there's all these complexities that we had to figure out. So we get through that. We start to sell licenses. We sell, 80 licenses basically our first year. And a license is an individual territory. One franchisee might buy 4 licenses at a time. We raised a $20 million round of capital at that point from a private equity group out of Atlanta. We're able to return some capital to our investors, our earlier investors, and then put a good chunk of money into the business. To scale out that team, to support the franchisees, to sell more, to open more, to help with marketing, training, et cetera. Fast forward to today, we're coming up on 20 locations open.
Wow, love that.
With 108 or so licenses sold.
Wow.
And we actually had a point for about a year and a half, paused the selling of licenses because we thought we've got so many sold at this point. We need to really focus on getting these open and being thoughtful. And those decisions along the way for any entrepreneur are incredibly hard, and you have to be disciplined to say, hey, I'm going to take my foot off the gas, which isn't easy or fun. It's hard to get it. It's hard to get it flywheeling.
And it takes time to get it back up and running too.
And so knowing that is tough, but it ultimately has to be, if your first 50 stores don't work out, what's the point of selling anything else? So you have to not get ahead of yourselves and bite off more than you can chew, and get in front of your skis, or whatever colloquialism you want to use. We had to focus on getting stores open profitably and focusing on that.
Oh yeah.
So that was a lot of the last year or so. And then, coming up to my, transition now, last year, I had a few kind of like personal and family things come up. My dad got sick. My wife has a pretty unique immigration situation that we're working through. And it was just a lot of, stuff that I think in isolation I'd be fine tackling head on and figuring out, but it was 3 or 4 pretty big, tumultuous, tough, challenging, mentally straining events. And so I went to one of our board members and said, "Hey, I got to take a couple months to just be with my dad,
reset,
reset." And during that time, I then rupture my Achilles. So it's like now physical, mental health gets a big hit. But during that time, I realized, what am I good at? What do I like doing? And I kept coming back to, I love the building stage, the 0 to 10, the creative problem solving, moving quickly again. And our company was getting to a size and level of complexity where it needs someone that has experience, scaling businesses beyond where we are now, putting really kind of, I don't want to say rigid, but more rigor and structure in place, systems in place, and optimizing the last 10% of the business.
Oh yeah,
I love the, hey, let's go make this huge bet that could be a 50% swing. And if it doesn't work out, we only invested X and we can go try 3 more of those. And being a smaller team. And so that was apparent to me. Plus with where I was, personally, I told I talked to our board, and it was clear that this is the natural inflection point to bring someone else in. It's not uncommon, for post-private equity or that, stage of capital to do that. And it allowed me again to go kind of focus on the areas I needed to go focus on. So go ahead.
Before we dive into more of that, let's talk about how did you guys come across this Atlanta VC firm to invest $20 million? For those individuals out there, raising capital is very difficult, always, no matter what. And so walk us through, those connections, those relationships on how you were able to pitch to them and them write you a check.
Yep. So not too dissimilar from any of the other rounds, whether it was a $400K round or a $20 million round. It was finding investors, firms, individuals that's their investment thesis, right? Like we are an early stage VC, we are a pre-seed, we are a Series A VC. Most of them are very upfront about it. This is the stage that our investment thesis is in. And a lot of those will take cold emails, and they have forms on their websites even to hey.
And so, are you Googling? Talk to us about how you're getting on, because I know there's PitchBook, there's Preqin, or a couple sites that you can actually get access to this type of information, and then contact information to reach out to them. Walk us through. Are you guys just sitting there Googling, trying to find those relationships, or hitting them on LinkedIn? Walk us through that. Yeah.
So Dan and I, when we split responsibility, and I'll start there, and then I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
He was going to run growth, so sales, marketing, which are 2 very different functions, but he was good at both of them. My focus was more operations, finance, and being the CEO of the company, which I broke into 3 things. It was making sure that we always were capitalized and had the right resource and the right types of resources. So that's the fundraising part, hiring the absolute best people and assembling that team, and then establishing and clearly articulating a vision and mission to get everyone to rally behind. So that first bucket for me of raising capital has evolved over time. Early on, it was going to the pitch books and Googling things and checking out, and honestly, shotgun approach. I was spraying things everywhere. I have, like any, I think, individual, whether it's a profession, a sport, you get better over time, and you learn which things to not do. And so at first, it was the shotgun approach. Then it became, leveraging the network that we had started to build, and that's continued to be a massive piece of I think how to do this as forwardables.
Most definitely.
And then getting really refined and surgical. So I looked at, all right, we're Series A, we are a B2C business, we have a lot of logistical complexity, and we're in the home services category. So I would start to refine it, and then I would go look for all the companies that had recently raised money that looked like us, Instacart, Zeal, the dog walking ones, other delivery-based tech, companies. I'd go look on Crunchbase, who are their investors, because they clearly like stuff like this.
Oh yeah.
And these are non-competitive businesses. So let's go. So then I'd make a list off, basically my prospecting list off of who else has recently raised money. So these funds are active. They're actively looking for things like this. And then I'd find my way to those firms, either cold direct, which you're going to end up talking to an analyst or an associate, then, which
someone
is
at the bottom
fine, but not the best way. Or I go find my way to the founders of those companies of the list I just made, because someone likely that I know knows them and I can do the forwardable. And I'm very clear with them, hey, I want 15 minutes. I know you're busy, just to show you that basically I'm real. I'm doing something.
I think the biggest
to
thing too is go to LinkedIn. It will show who your mutual connections are. And what I've done too is that some of these founders, they don't have their personal or their emails up, or obviously maybe their assistant, but they don't have any of that. So what you do is you look at all of the associates, and if it's Alex at QC Capital Group, Chris at QC Capital Group, Stephanie at QC Capital Group. Okay, well, there's a very good chance that Alex, who's the CEO, it's going to be Alex at QC Capital Group.
Yep.
There have been tons of times where I have put those type of emails in, and I know they have sent and been delivered because we have a software that says it's been delivered and read. That you can do. Just go look at every single employee and say, okay, these are the emails. It's their last name at the company that they're at, and then email them directly.
Yep, totally, 100%. And so I'd find my way to the founder of a company that recently raised money from someone I was after, and just did the forwardable. Hey, if I send you this, can you send it to these 3 or 4 people that invested? And now you've got investors hearing about you from someone that they just put millions of dollars into. So they clearly trust this person.
Oh, 100%.
Saying, hey, you should check out this company, get the call, and go that way. So that's what it's been more recently for me. Whenever I raise money, it's to leverage the network.
Yeah.
Who do I know? And then be surgical about, is there any strategic investor I'm looking for? If I'm not, then it's, who do I like?
So one of your previous investors forwarded over to that company.
Yep.
Very nice.
We ended up getting connected to the group in Atlanta because of a mentor or someone in our network said, hey, you should talk to these folks.
Yeah.
They're in franchising. They invest in franchise businesses. You should talk to them. And then they also opened up General Atlantic and a bunch of other large private equity groups that invest in startups, and talked to 100 again.
Oh yeah, there you go. No, I love that. And so now you are making your transition into creating a new startup, because that's what your heart's at.
Yep.
Talk to us about that.
So I wanted to make sure that 2U and LaundroLab has everything it needs to be successful. So my co-founder Dan, he's staying there in the interim, and then we're bringing on a new guy that I can't share yet, but we're really excited about. And I've had this idea for a year and a half, 2 years at this point, of when we got into franchising, the way we talked about it a little bit earlier, the way that these emerging franchisors and even more established ones that maybe have 100 locations open, the ones that aren't McDonald's or Chick-fil-A yet, they're on their way. They don't have a lot of resources, a lot of internal teams for everything, because there's so many aspects of what they're doing. Yeah. A lot of them rely on business brokers to bring them leads for their future franchisees.
Most definitely.
And what I didn't know until I got into this is that the brokers provide a ton of value in that they're bringing leads that eventually have a lifetime value of $500,000 to $1 million. So they're absolutely worth paying them to send those leads. But found out they're basically taking a 60% commission on that franchise fee, which is a lot. I mean, it's worth it in the long run for the brand. But the more I got into the sales process itself and realized the brand itself is still doing 70% of the sales. They're doing the business overview calls, the unit economic calls, the validation, the discovery days where candidates come to HQ and meet the team, and it's a mutual evaluation process that both parties are going through, and that's let's call it 70% of the sales process. I couldn't justify an individual making a 60% commission, doing
wild.
20 to 30% of the sales themselves. Again, it's absolutely worth it to the brand in the long run. But my thought was there's enough AI and technology tools now that could allow brands to still get high quality leads, but maybe pay 30% instead of 60. Because the thing that started to, I don't know if upset me is the right word, because again, I'm thankful for the brokers that sent us leads. But the things that made me feel bad maybe for the candidates is that there wasn't a lot of transparency. I mean, you've been in real estate for a long time. There is no license requirement for franchise brokers. There's no...
Anyone can be one.
Anyone can be one without classes or courses. You can just become one.
Wow.
And on top of that, there isn't a lot of disclosure requirements to say, hey, I as a broker, you as a lead.
Because there's no government body to say, hey, you have to do this.
And so you've got a lot of these candidates that are excited about becoming their own boss. It's maybe their first time. They were in corporate America or whatever else. and they trust this individual to help make the right decision for them. And again, a lot of them do, but they don't fully understand that this person is going to make a 60% fee on the back. They're not, they're understanding that you're making money somehow.
Correct.
I'm not paying you, so someone
Everyone
is.
has to make money, but you don't have to be greedy.
The assumption, I think, is that you're making a couple grand per lead that you send to a brand, not tens of thousands of dollars per lead.
Which is wild.
Which changes the alignment, I think.
Oh, most definitely.
And so my thought with the platform is it's democratized, right? I, as the founder of this platform, don't necessarily care which brand that Chris matches with. I want Chris to match with the brand that's going to make you the happiest, make you the return profile that you want, that matches your risk risk profile,
most definitely,
your interests, your needs, your financial capability, not just, hey, I should send Chris over here because they convert really well.
Oh yeah.
If we do that the right way over the long run, you're going to probably buy more licenses in the future and come back and basically online shop this platform for the next thing.
Most definitely.
And so that's the thought is basically, can we build a Zillow-like, or if folks are familiar with, it used to be called MicroAcquire, now it's called acquire.com, a platform for people to educate themselves on franchising. So what is an FDD? What parts of it should I pay attention to? What questions do I need to have when I do get connected to a brand? So that the education piece, there's the research and kind of matchmaking component of this, based on my risk appetite, based on my financial kind of background and picture, based on my operational experience. What is the best fit for me based on my location? I'm in Charlotte. I don't want to open one in Nashville or wherever else. You can fill all these parameters out, filter, search, just like you would on Zillow. I want X square feet, X bedrooms, whatever. Look at pictures, look at background. And then once you start to hone in on that subset of brands that you're interested in, you can compare them. What's the total investment across these four? And they might be completely unrelated. Dog walking, a gutter cleaning business, and a laundromat.
All different, yeah.
And so I can see, hey, this one's going to cost me X. The average revenue, per store in the system is Y. How long have they been around? All these different, pieces of information. And then you can now, once you're ready, you've done all this research because all the information you need is there. Say, I want to connect with these two brands. We make the handoff just like a broker would. And that's, to me, when the real sales process actually starts. You're really getting into the weeds of what is this brand about? What's their story? What resources do they provide? What support? And we are there to truly, be in the background as a coach to enable you with tools, leveraging some AI and learning language models to equip you with the types of questions you should ask, or maybe even know some of the answers before you go into the conversation more efficiently than one person can do on their own.
Yeah, right? I love that.
And so that's the idea now. It's called Franzy, Franzy.com. So we had the level of franchising in there.
Yeah.
We've raised a little bit of money for it at this point, and are going live here shortly, or maybe by the time this comes out, it's already.
I'm sure
it's already launched.
That's going to be exciting.
But that's the idea: is get all that information democratized, publicly available, and then make the best, highest quality matches for people.
I love that. No, and I definitely think there's a market out for that. Me, late at night when I don't sleep, I like to look at buy BizQuest, all those different type of businesses, see what's out there. And for those entrepreneurs out there, if you're in college, I think that's the best way to get education is inquire. With those type of businesses, ask for their P&L, analyze it, ask questions, ask why they're selling, how they came up to the number, justify the number. You're getting that firsthand experience of an actual business being for sale or a franchise.
Yep.
And I think that's super important that you guys are really going to set that level of customer service and that experience for those individuals looking to buy or sell. Where right now, again, like we said, there's no governing body with these brokers. It's a wild, wild west. They'll do whatever they want, and they'll get whatever they want.
Yep. And again, there's a group that I think are very well intentioned, but like any industry, especially when there aren't guardrails or regulation, there's a big group that also isn't well intentioned. And I saw that happen in a few instances where individuals were put into the wrong concept because it had the highest commission on the back end, and they had no idea, and they probably to this day still don't know. And one day they might wake up and realize, either the business isn't working or this wasn't as fundamentally sound as I thought it, was. And so part of our goal and our mission with this is to make it completely transparent, get the right individuals with the right brands, and vice versa. The brand wants to make sure that Chris has a good background and the right experience, and is going to be a good steward of whatever their baby might have been, because someone at some point took that from one location 100%. To 100 and cares about it a lot. Just like this individual is maybe taking half of their retirement savings and putting it into their own business and betting on themselves. we want them to, out of the gate, have the advantages and the tools to make sure it's the right bet and not, influenced by someone else that might have something at stake. And it's truly me and you having a conversation
100%.
and we're getting to the root of it.
Yeah, most definitely. Alex, I really enjoyed this. Really enjoyed, from start to finish, everything of what you built, then exited, and now what you're building now. By the time this comes out, I want everyone to check out what what your new venture is, which is just going to really revolutionize and change the industry. So very excited to have you on, and excited to have you on in the near future as well, after you have a good couple years under your belt with the new venture and see how that goes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me too, and would love to do that. I mean, as soon as Franzy gets out, and I have to plug it, if you're interested in exploring your own business, getting into your own thing, franchising specific, franzy.com, Franzy. Check it out. Would love to get feedback, and thanks again for having me.
I'll definitely check it out, and I'll give you some feedback on it. So thanks so much, Alex.
Cool. Thanks. You.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chris Salerno Show. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insight to help you along your journey. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions or topics that you would like to cover, feel free to reach out directly to me. Shoot me a message on Instagram at Chris_Salerno_. Until next time, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.